Hi whiskey enthusiasts. Let's do a Scotch review tonight. This is something that I recently picked up on one of my trips out of town, 3 or 4 hours away. It's not readily available around here, so it's something I've been wanting for quite a while. This is Kilchoman Loch Gorm. This is bottled at 46%. This is an Islay malt. For those of you who don't know, that is on the southwestern part of Scotland, and it is an island. And this area is known for exceptionally peaty or smoky whiskies. This one is no exception to that. However, this one is unique, coming from Kilchoman. It is the only non-single barrel release from them that is aged 100% in ex-sherry casks. So it will have a big sherry influence compared to some of their other offerings. And it is only age stated at 5 years. So it could be a little older than that, parts of it that are vatted together, but the minimum is 5 years. And many of you might think that that's very, very young for a Scotch, but there's two factors there that matter. One, it's an Islay, and the Islay malts in that area, they do mature faster. You see some of the primary releases in Islay being only 8 or 10 years old, like the Lagavulin 8, the Lafroig 10-year, and the Ardbeg 10-year. Those are all very good quality whiskeys that are aged a short time. You don't see those kinds of very young releases so much when you're talking about Speyside, the Highlands, or the Islands. Although you do get a little bit of that with the Talisker 10. But that area matures stuff a little faster, and it may be because of the peat that has that effect on it. And so don't run away from it because it's 5 years old. Let's see what we find in this tonight. The first things I get on this are what I like to call a wet smoke. And it probably doesn't mean exactly what you think. I look at things in terms of a dry smoke, like an acrid or an ashy smoke, versus what I say is a wet smoke, which is meaty and rich, as if you're smoking meat. And this is the latter. And that is coupled with a very prominent citrus note. And I can pick up both orange and lemon in this, and the lemon is probably a little bit stronger, which doesn't surprise me a lot because their standard offering, the Kilchoman Makyr Bay, has a lot of lemon in it. So somewhere along the line, this is probably the same mash bill, and were it not for the sherry casks, would have been headed more in the direction of the Makyr Bay. After the first whiff, the peatiness backs off for me a little bit. I still get a lot of the rich meat or beef jerky feel to it, or smoked ribs, but the smoke itself seems to dissipate just a little. And you notice that I had this covered with a coaster before I started the review, so I was probably holding some of that in. The sherry comes across after you kind of get used to the reduction in the smoke. You start getting some rich, dark stone fruits. Yeah, the longer I nose this, the more of the sherry that comes through. There's some wood spice that comes through in the nose once you kind of get used to the others and they dissipate a little. They're light spices though, like a nutmeg. Maybe just a hint of cinnamon. And there's a tiny bit of grassiness underneath. And some malt. I think that's about it. Let's see where the palate goes. Oddly for me, the very beginning of the palate, the grass note comes through first. Then the peat starts showing itself, but the peat is not as wet or as meaty as it was in the nose for me. It's a drier peat, like a campfire peat with a little ash to it. Mingled with the grass at the beginning of the palate, there's a lot of lemon that mixes very, very balanced with the grass. Then the peat comes in, and the peat is married very closely with the spice, the light spices of the cinnamon, the nutmeg, and there's a little bit of pepper that comes in. Late in the palate, the warmth and dark flavors of the sherry come back in a little bit. You get just a hint of some dark fruits. It's not very prominent simply because the citrus has so much power. But you get a little bit of that, and when that comes in, it brings with it, how do I describe? Let me go again. I lost my train of thought slightly. Yes. Late in the palate, when the sherry starts taking over a little bit, you get some nuttiness. You could say possibly a little bit like almond or a little bit like hazelnut. Maybe a combination of the two. It's not any particular nut, so to speak, but there's a definite nuttiness that takes over when the palate darkens with the sherry influence. By this time, the peat has faded somewhat. In the finish, you get more of the oak and the peat marrying. Perhaps a little bit of tar. And it's a little bit oily towards the end too, on the finish. The finish is medium for the most part. The smoke sticks with you for longer, but everything else fades out at a medium length, and only the hints of smoke are left at the very end. I think this is a very nice malt. This is not cheap. I believe in northern Kansas I gave about $90, $94 for this. So for a 5-year-old malt, it's fairly expensive. But Kilchoman makes some high quality stuff, and I think this holds its own against some things that are much older rather. This is one that I enjoy a lot. I liked the Makir Bay, but this is a much more complex and a much deeper and richer flavor for me. That doesn't mean I'm knocking the Makir Bay. It's good too. there's just not quite as much going on. Only you can decide whether this is worth $90 or not. For me, I think, although I really do like it, I would try to find it on sale the next time, because really, I think it's probably, realistically, on taste, it's probably only about a $75 to $80 whiskey to me. Kilchoman is the newest distillery on Islay, and they're still getting started, so they don't have a long history, and they don't have a big bankroll, so there's probably some cost involved in that. Plus, just so you know, they're one of the only ones that do everything from field to bottling on site. Not every single bottling is that way, but at least a portion of their whiskey is the barley is grown on site, it's malted on site in an old-fashioned malting floor. It is aged there, it is bottled there. So they're attempting to do something that no one does anymore, and that is do everything on site. So there's probably some cost involved in that too. Overall, I think it's worth a look. At the very least, find it at a good whiskey bar and give it a shot. Have a good night, guys.